So,
I think it was evidenced in the fact that when I got to college, and this is, I think it's a remarkable thing or a really interesting thing, is when I go to a Bible study and then go back to my dorm room and decide to chuck my entire worldview and adopt this whole other one, right? Like that just shows how little I had actually had cemented anything in my belief set that I could go, well, I might have to adjust this or that. I just chucked the whole thing and took on something else old hat, right?
well, but that's kind of promising. I mean, that means that at least one person had an experience in college that changed their entire worldview overnight.
right. I don't think that's a good thing though. That shows how little I thought about, or at least how little I had thought about how just the justification for my beliefs, that I was willing to abandon them, and take on worldviews. Worldviews are an interesting topic to me recently because I had somebody give me a list of things that my worldview would have to do to be a valid worldview, and it was all of these grand giant things, right, that are big explanations, and I'm like, well, but if you build your worldview up from the bottom up, and you've just got a working knowledge of the things that you have experience with, how is that not valid, right? That's exactly what a worldview is for. It's just your beliefs that inform your interactions, right? And how you can reliably react or interact with the world. And here, this guy is giving me this laundry list of things that he's saying, if I can't answer for them, my worldview is invalid. And I'm like, that's just a completely perverse way to think about a belief framework, right?
Oh, that is really interesting. I would love for you to send me that list.
Oh, well,
Really.
it's a gem because I'm just like, wow, really? My worldview is not valid then? And how do you know these things, right? Like there are
Well,
things
so
that are just, oh my gosh, you're like this, primate for maybe 70 years on this chunk of rock going 60,000 miles an hour around a sun, and you're expected to know that these things, right? Like, have some humility. And it essentially was saying that if your worldview can't account for all of reality and the ultimate causes, then it's not valid. Which is a
so
really I've been referring to that as a top-down approach to belief formation versus a bottom-up, right? So
right.
instead, what you're being given the entire. It's like somebody comes up to you from around the bend, hands you a map, and goes, "Here's where everything is. That map you've been drawing is garbage. Toss it out." And you just take this thing on. This guy say so, right? Instead of being more judicious and working your way through the map and just bothering to map the places you've been. And if you've been there a few times, maybe you draw it a little darker, right? And
Yeah.
then when you return to those places, you know where everything is. But you don't have to answer for what's over that mountain because you never go over there, right? So what's the point of it, right? And so that's where I see this kind of bottom up versus this top down of, hey, here's the map and these are all the answers. And you might like, what if I never go over that mountain, right? Can I really buy into that this guy did and that this is where everything is, right? So,
Right.
and he can't give you
Right.
any, and on top of that, he can't give me any account for how he visited all these places and managed to map it all, right? To me, it's the wrong way to think about what beliefs are for, right? Like it
Okay.
leverages
What are
it,
for, Bert?
well, my beliefs. So let's say I'm a toddler on a mat in a living room, laying on my back, and I've got this toy dangling above me, and I'm just hitting the crap out of that thing. I develop an
Mm-hmm.
inference, right, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of I develop a belief in terms of when I have the visual experience of my hand swinging out in front of me, and I feel this sensation that I've hit something. I've hit something. That's when I'm making this thing move, and I build this inference regarding causation and regarding what it is to have the visual experience of my hand contact something and what I should expect from that, and um, it and from those early moments throughout, you're building your framework of experiences and your inferences regarding the world and how you can a child walks up to water for the first time, or not walks up, I guess, if he's been deprived of water for a long time, if he's walking up. But you have a child who comes across something they've never been presented with, and they're going to operate on the inferences they have and find that they fail, but they'll quickly learn, oh, that's actually a liquid. Or I thought that this representation was before me. I inferred that it was this. But that's not actually the case. That's for instance, when you hide a ball from a child or something, and he thinks that it's gone out of existence.
Yeah, so move on to the connection before I lose. So I get that idea. Now connect that to the other thing.
So my point is you're building this belief setup based on your experiences. And so for me, beliefs are the purpose of beliefs are to map the world so that the next time you walk up to water, you know that you're not going to be able to walk on it, right?
Okay.
So you've developed some info, and so it's this working model for the sake of just having the interactions that you have on a daily basis. And if you have a new interaction, let's say God shows up tonight in my room, I'm going to develop an inference or that will be my first experience with that experience, and I will have some type of belief regarding that, but that hasn't happened yet. So why do I have to wander way beyond my experience to pose answers to things which I haven't had those belief forming experiences? What would be even the purpose of it? What would to establish my predictable response for something I never interact with? Like it, do you know what I'm saying? So I see beliefs as being operative, and things they are things I leverage, right? It's something, and my confidence is something that I leverage, and that's based on my justification and how often I interact with those things, and how I think I can know them. But then when somebody comes in with this worldview idea and says, here's all the answers in this book, this is what you need to believe. That to me is a bizarre way to approach. I don't even see that as having to do anything with what beliefs are actually about.
I think you're right. Of course.
I actually found, I think, the list of
great. Okay.
These things. So
okay, good. So let's look at that list, because so sort of how could I save this is sort of, wait a second, what if we forget that person's conclusions, but we look at sort of the essence of his bullet point in terms of questions, and then if we present those questions to people before they've been through a huge process of development, might that be a better thing than not doing so? So let's see the list.
So the list, actually, I think I actually made it more concise. Okay. I don't have the concise list, but I'll read it to you kind of what it says. It says, and I think he's quoting another source, actually. So he says, a coherent worldview must answer the questions of origin, meaning, morality, and destiny. A watertight
coherent worldview must answer the questions of morality. What else?
Meaning.
What does that even mean? Okay, morality, meaning, origin,
and destiny.
Sorry.
Yeah. Kind of there's a little bit of a built-in assumption there. So
yeah. Okay. So
it says basically, if there aren't watertight answers to these questions, then the worldview is utterly useless.
Wow. Wow. I mean.
So and there was another.
I'm speechless, right? By that sort of assertion that your worldview is utterly useless if you haven't come up with definitive answers. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. It says a viable worldview must offer adequate answers to these questions: ultimate reality, what kind of God, if any, actually exists? External reality, is there anything beyond the cosmos? Knowledge, what can be known, and how can anyone know it? origin, where did I come from? Identify who I am. Location, where am I? Morals, how should I live? Values, what should I consider of great worth? Predicament, what is humanity's fundamental problem? Resolution, how can humanity's problem be solved? That kind of assumes there's a problem. Past, present, what is the meaning and direction of history? Destiny, will I survive the death of my body? And if so, under what state? Under these criteria, I believe biblical Christianity makes for a compelling worldview.
Okay, I mean, under these criteria, I mean, I am forced to agree. Under these criteria and the condition that it is better to have an answer than to not have an answer, Christianity does supply answers to those questions.
That's true. Yep.
But, you know, so, okay, fine, right?
I was going to throw something in real quick. I came in when y'all was talking about that list of questions. Talk about loaded questions.
That sound like teacher of the Bible.
Yeah, it's like these are questions that you can't answer unless you have some kind of divine revelation or something. You know?
Well, most of them were, almost all of them were loaded questions.
Yeah.
Can I just say, for the record, I hate the term worldview. Can I just point that out? I detest it.
Yeah, but you don't like to be called an atheist either.
No,
you don't like that I call myself a Christian. You just don't like terms.
No, look, it's the fact that it's just the biggest cop out ever. It's like worldview. It's
Stop labeling.
What does that mean? What does it mean by worldview? Are you telling me it's objective or subjective? It's some kind of like cop out.
Worldview is just your belief set. It's just.
Oh, I love you, Ozymandias. Now we can hear you. Go on.
Okay. Yeah.
Come on, lover. Come on.
I understand why people get annoyed by the expression worldview, because it gets bandied about by people who I think haven't thought a whole lot about what a worldview actually is, and all they mean is their explicit philosophy. You know, a worldview is much more than that. A worldview is the entirety of your belief set, including all of your implicit beliefs. And if you think of it that way, if you think of worldview as just your belief set, well, of course, everyone has a belief set. Everyone has a worldview. It's just not necessarily an explicit, articulated and self-conscious philosophical position, but everyone has a worldview, right? And so when people say, you know, according to your worldview, according to my worldview, there's a lot of presumption when people talk about your worldview, when really they're talking about the entirety of your belief set. That's what I think is obnoxious about the expression worldview, is when people talk about your worldview as if they have some idea about the contents of your beliefs and your metaphysical assumptions and that sort of thing. It's highly presumptuous, right? When people talk about the atheistic worldview, I mean that's a fatuous claim. I mean, look, you know, there are atheists who believe in karma, who believe in souls. There are people who believe. There are atheists who believe in ghosts and telepathy and all kinds of supernatural woo by my lights. You know, the suggestion that such a person shares the same worldview as me is ludicrous. And so when people talk about the atheist worldview, I just, you know, that's what's obnoxious. Is not that they are using the word, but they're using it to play fast and loose, to characterize.
Yes, I mean the point is that if most people use the word or the term worldview, which is basically saying my fucking opinion. I mean that's basically what it is. They're saying, oh, worldview to sound smart. You don't sound smart. You just sound like a fucking stuck-up little cunt.
I think a lot of what we experience here is sophistry, and of course, again, I would I just read what hell to put. So I would say that, you know, there's a bit of internet sophistry that goes on, and you know, I guess like 4 or something years I've been on YouTube. I've had my fair share of it, and it does kind of get old after a while. It's like, well, we toss these terms around, but what does it really mean to have a world? I can't even write down 10 things that I would consider important to a world view, because at the end of the day, these things that I value, other people aren't going to value. I give you an example. Today, I was in the bathroom, and it just kind of hit me, is that there's no greater feeling that I've ever felt than preparing for death. Now, and I say this, in all of my life, there's no greater feeling than I've had other than preparing for my own death, and that is something that I can't describe to someone. But that feeling, that just thinking about gives me chills. I love it, and as morbid and macabre as that is, I can't tell someone else that's what they should value, and that should be a part of their worldview, no matter how important I think it is. So it's really something that I find it very presumptuous for someone to give someone else a list and say your worldview of the culmination of everything that you do know and believe and will probably ever know or believe is invalid because I have X experience or I think X about mine.
Yeah,
Scott is chomping at the bit.
That came from like a Ravi Zacharias sermon. I think he was quoting, or not a sermon, but like a talk or whatever. So.
Oh, he can eat a dick.
I think I think something I find myself repeating more and more and more when in discussions with people, and they start throwing on the atheist worldview, and I'm like, I'm sorry, atheism is a very, very small claim about one very specific thing. Saying that someone is an atheist really doesn't tell you anything about what could be considered a worldview. All it tells you is that they don't believe in a divine being, which really in itself doesn't say a whole lot, despite what some of them may try to argue.
Well, and the whole using the word world is very analogous, to say the least, because what you're trying to say is, oh, well, everybody else thinks that the same thing I think because we live on a planet. No. Just because we live on a planet doesn't give your worldview any more fucking proponents than saying, well, a fucking unicorn made the universe. It doesn't do shit. So if I said to you, my worldview is that the unicorn made the universe, you're gonna go, well, that's not a worldview. That's just your fucking opinion. This is the point. The linguistics of it is the problem. Using the word, I should say, worldview, as some kind of statement of authority, it's fucking pathetic. It's like atheism plus. It's just retarded, basically.
I think atheism has to be paired. Atheism has to be paired with some sort of philosophy, and then you can say it's a worldview. And I would say a lack of a god would be a worldview in my mindset. But it would be part of it. It would be part of it. It wouldn't be all of it.
No, it's one proposition within a framework of beliefs.
No, but using the word world is the problem. You're trying to say that the world is backing you up in this claim.
No, that's not what the title means, and that's uncharitable.
No, that's how it's interpreted, though. If you say my world,
if it's interpreted that way, it's interpreted that way by an idiot.
A worldview is your view of the world.
I'm sorry to say this, but most people are fucking idiots who live on the planet.
Well, I mean, I worked in the grocery store, and
I'm sorry.
Let's let Ozzy. You can speak to that point, and then maybe go back to the other topic, Ozzy.
Well, I'll just say one thing about worldview. I mean, when people talk about a worldview, they just mean their view of the world,
which is an opinion.
Okay, it could be an opinion, but so what? I mean, it's your map of reality. It's your picture of the world, right? So and everyone has one, right? So
yes, but they try and linguist it though. They try and use that use of the word in English. They try and use that to come out like they're smart. It's not. It's just an opinion.
Well, I agree. The expression worldview is a bit of an affectation when a person could just say your picture of reality, or your position, or your perspective, or your outlook, or your
opinion,
philosophical stance. I mean, there's any number of things they could say. Worldview has sort of caught on. I think it's just sort of it's catchy. It's just a kind of faddish expression. It'll go at some point, but it's not meaningless.
Worldview means those things.
That's right. Worldview means those things. You could have used all those others. There's nothing wrong with it.
I just wanted to say really quick. Jimmy Stevens and I actually argued about this term. I don't like the term either because it sounds all-encompassing. I understand everything about you. So I say, why don't we say perspective, or why don't we say,
opinion?
And we were playing ping pong about it. Nope. And what Stiles might be getting at, I'm not sure, is that there are Christians that do say you're an atheist, so I know all of your worldview.
Right. Right.
I don't think anybody.
That would be true even if you substituted these other terms.
That's right. So
it's not about the term.
Right.
So people should just, smooth your feathers about the term.
No, it's not. It's the
what's behind the term for each person, right?
Yeah, it's the misuse of the linguistics of the term.
Well,
I mean,
blah blah.
Well,
it's not. It's how one conforms to linguistics. If you don't understand how people can manipulate language in order to get you think a certain way, then you don't understand what propaganda is. I'm sorry, but you just don't.
Okay, well, the point that I would make overall is, regardless of what term they use, very few people here know each other well enough to try and quantify someone's perspective about life in general.
The worldview.
Worldview, perspective, whatever you want to call it, because very few people here even know my real name, but many of them will claim to have psychic powers in order to divine what I value in life the most. Which
I
is
bet
ridiculous.
I could feel your name. I bet I could.
Yes, you do know my real name.
Probably.
I don't give a shit, honestly. But,
yeah, but no, but I think Dragnaut's completely correct in this in what he's saying. It's true. It's like worldview doesn't mean anything other than, well, my opinion of the world. But that doesn't imply that the world is the way you're subjecting the narrative, right? So I could be a Christian or an atheist or whatever, and I say, oh, my worldview. That doesn't mean shit. It just means
why do we communicate at all, Sty? We have to try words, and we do label
No,
things.
I know.
And then we just have to decide. Every time you think that you run into somebody that's defining something differently, you have to go, when you say worldview, what do you mean?
Yes, and this is the case. I'm English. I understand my language, and I understand when people misuse terms. I understood when George W. Bush said there's a war on terror. Grammatically, that is incorrect. You cannot have a war on terror. It's fundamentally flawed. This is the point.
I'm having a war on drugs.
If people use English incorrectly, I'm going to point it out because I'm fucking English.
Let's go ahead on the parkway and park in a driveway.
Let's go ahead.
I'm just pointing that out. I'm just pointing out how people can misuse the language.